Okay, well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for being a part of the Faith and Finesse Mastermind series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, for everyone that's tuning in or that may watch the rebroadcast of this, this is Mr. Will York, creative entrepreneur, advocate for positive fatherhood and just personal finance and literacy and all that good stuff that everyone should know, but specifically our Black people. And so I am really just excited for us to have this conversation. For those of you that don't know, it is Precious Appreciation Month, national holiday, but I'm still building awareness about that aspect. But this is where I share appreciation for my journey. And this year I decided to bring some friends along as well, people that I've connected with, people I believe that are just a force in their own right, and that I know that are going to be leading, the next generations to come. So once again, thank you. And I'm excited for this conversation. So I like to just kind of start off and, just kind of have a moment of gratitude. So God, thank you for bringing us here today. I pray that everyone that's a part of this conversation walks away with what they came to receive. Please allow this conversation to flow and be casual and just be transparent in a way where we're really being able to add value to people in this time. I just pray you continue to give us the peace and strength we need to continue pushing through the pain to our purpose. I know that this year is going to be a victorious one. And the closer we are together, the more we come into community, the more we share information and knowledge. I know that it can progress us further, quicker. And so, dear God, just thank you for all that you do. And let's get this going. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. So let's kind of kick things off and just, I guess, give people an overview of how you've entered your journey of entrepreneurship. So, I don't know if this is like a childhood story moment or if it's like one of those moments where you in college and you discover that, it's important, because with you being in the field or having a passion for personal finance, I do believe that would be some type of motivator to be an entrepreneur as well. But yeah, you can kind of give us an overview.
Sure. My first recollection of entrepreneurship probably was when I was in elementary school.
I had a feeling this was connected to your childhood.
It's true. It sounds cliche, but it's true. When I was in elementary school, I think there was an opportunity after school where there were snacks at a local store that were discounted, right? And I was in the after-school program because my mom got off from work so late. And so we normally stayed late at school, my brother and I. So I usually would go there, I probably got money from my mom from chores or getting money from her some kind of way. And I'll go to the local store and I'll buy a bunch of snacks, candy, Laffy Taffy, Reese's, Snickers, and then I'll upsell it. But the entire week, and this was only on Fridays, the entire week, I would kind of promote it. I would like, hey, on Friday, ooh, you know where to find me. I'll sell you this and that. So then, and I think I always was fond of numbers and math. So I always knew like my margins. I knew how much I would make off the Reese's, off the Laffy Taffy. So I probably was making maybe like $15 to $20 a week. But for me,
that's a lot of money for a kid.
Right. So I think then is when I found out, hey, if there's an opportunity for me to kind of help other people get whatever they need, then that's an opportunity. I didn't know that was called entrepreneurship then, but now I do. So fast forward into college is when I really start to kind of pick it up. In college, right, you're a broke college student. You're always looking for ways to make money. Mm-hmm. I was like doing people's math homework for a while, like online, those assignments that you have to do online, and you have to finish a certain amount of assignments within a period.
Right.
And so a lot of people do it, right? And for me, it was easy to me anyway.
Yeah.
But problem with that was it became time consuming, right? So the amount of money that I was getting from that was not really translating to the amount of time I was putting into it.
Right.
So then I transitioned to I was selling G-Shocks. Remember G-Shocks?
Oh my God, yes, I do.
I was selling G-Shocks. I don't know how I found out someone who had G-Shocks on a wholesale price. So a friend of mine and I, we went in on it and we bought, I don't know, maybe like 20 G-Shocks at one time. We got it for a pretty good price and we just upsold it and we continued to do that. We probably did that for like a whole semester. We made good money off of it too.
Wow.
Then my final recollection of true entrepreneurship, snapbacks. So snapback hats.
Yeah.
So I remember I went to Harwin randomly. In Harwin, there was these, you know Harwin.
Of course, I know the Harwin district.
Right. So they have a bunch of wholesale stuff and they had a lot of hats. And at this time, snapbacks weren't quite as popular as its peak, but they were popular enough for people to be like, oh, what's going on? So I was selling it at such a discounted price, people were buying it from me. So that's the 3 memories I have.
Wow, you got me going down memory lane. Cause I know like, I started with candy too. It was middle school, so I was having a little candy business, going to Sam's, getting my product, doing my margins, as you would say. Did that for a while, and then I think I don't think I pursued any entrepreneurial anything in high school, but I can definitely say in college, of course, they used to call me a Jamaican, because I always had several different jobs or hustles. I was doing people's jeans, cutting up people's jeans and like doing the bleaching. I'm trying to think of what else I did. Of course, like my boyfriend at the time, he had a clothing line. So I was helping him sell his clothes, having the vendor tables and all of that. So always been involved in business. My brain has just always been like, okay, let's create some revenue from this. Let's make some profits. Profits has always been on my mind. But the crazy part is, as business minded as I am, I've never been money driven when it came to my career or jobs or anything like that. What is money one of your motivators, or what's one of your motivators as you just evolve into your manhood? Because, finances are important and bringing in money is important. And I know some people where it's like, I'm gonna follow the dollar. Do you have that same mindset?
Right. I don't, but I don't knock people who do, right? There's a lot of people who do, because of their circumstances, they feel like they need to, find money. And, if the way of doing it, I don't knock it at all. But for me, I think it's always been purpose and finding like an area or opportunity to help somebody, right? So like the after school thing for me was like, these kids, they probably wanted snacks after a long day at school on Fridays. And I'm like, okay, they probably would like to have snacks, which is why they bought it, right? Uh-huh. And so I think I've always looked at opportunities, but don't get me wrong, margins were always important because I didn't want to spin my wheels. You know what I mean? So if I knew I could make a profit, that just accelerated my desire to help people. You know what I mean? But it's not the number one for me. It's definitely purpose, like helping other people.
Yeah, I agree. No, definitely. I do think the margins matter. And then, there's some moments where it's like, money may not matter at all. It's a matter of creating the impact. But whenever you compare those two together, it's like, oh, this is a win-win for sure. I can definitely say just through this adulting phase, and I've always had a long-term, long game type of mindset. But even more so now, it's just, I guess over time, I'm realizing that having that long-term mindset has benefited me to not really be in this space of that instant gratification. So I'm thankful that I've had that mindset because, programming yourself to feel like you're supposed to receive instant results or, instant gain just wouldn't be good in the world we live in right now. Because I know a lot of people feel and think that way. But in the concepts of faith and finesse, with this whole series that I'm doing, I believe that that's literally what life is. There's so many pivots we have to make. Some that, you know, we don't ask for that just happen, some that we know that are coming. And I know that you've had to do a lot of pivots through that. I mean, even just from being a boy to a man, from being a man to becoming a father. And I don't know if like the fatherhood made you become a man, or what was that shift of you from boy to man? Was that before fatherhood, after, during? Because I'm sure it has something to do with it.
I think somebody else would have to answer that. But in my opinion, that was definitely a transition for me, a pivot when my daughter was born. I think, and I was 20, I was a sophomore in college when she was born. And it was unplanned. And from there, I knew I wanted to knuckle down and do what I needed to do to make sure that she was comfortable. Right? Like as a boy, we're taught that as a man, it's your job to be the provider, to make sure that your family, your loved ones, that they're good, right? So that was like primary for me. I knew that was something that I wanted to do. So 100%, that was a huge pivot in my life, and I'm completely gracious and thankful for that opportunity, because I don't know what I would be like had my daughter not been on this earth, right? Like I have no idea. I don't even know if you and I would be talking right now. You just never know. Another pivot career-wise, so I initially went to school for journalism. I was like in high school, I played sports and stuff, but I did like the newspaper, yearbook.
Oh my God, I was the news anchor. I did the news and the school updates. That's crazy. Okay.
Why is nothing you say a surprise to me? Nothing. But I did that. So I did the newspaper and yearbook. So I was really into journalism. I enjoy writing. It was like therapeutic for me. And so I was going to school, college, transitioning, and I had to make a decision. Now, like I told you, I always thought I was pretty good at numbers. So I was like, what are you going to do? Are you going to do journalism? Or are you going to do something dealing with like finance, math, or something along those lines? And I had to make a decision. And so I decided to go the finance accounting route because I felt like it was more sustainable. And I felt like journalism, yeah, it might have been like a passion thing, but I could always do that in freelance. I could do that on the side if I wanted to. That's how I felt. So I had to make that decision. And so that was a big pivot, and it was a pivotal moment because, again, I don't know if I would have chose journalism where I would be. Only God knows, but I felt like that was a unique moment for me to make a decision on that.
For sure. Can you think of a time where, you know, you had to make a pivot and you were like pretty solid in your faith of like, yes, like this is what I feel like I need to do, and you did it and it actually panned out the way you thought or even better?
Ooh, yes. You make me jog down my memory lane. After I graduated, actually prior to me graduating, I did a couple internships, like finance accounting type internships. And then after I graduated, I had to make a decision. I was blessed. I had 2 offers that I really wanted to go to one of these jobs, one of these companies that I wanted to work for at the time. And so I did an internship with one of the companies, and the other company, one of the companies that I did the internship, they sent me a letter saying that, hey, you need to make a decision on this offer by X date. And I was waiting for the other letter from the other company, and they hadn't sent it yet. And the day that they sent it was the day that this one was due. The other one was due.
Oh, wow. How ironic is that?
Right. I mean, very blessed to be in that type of situation for sure. I know some people who didn't get any offers.
Me?
Yeah, but look at you. You know what I'm saying? It made you stronger.
For sure.
But so I had to make a decision, and so I spoke to like my mentor. I spoke to some of my college professors who worked within the industry, and I had to turn in the paper. So I turned it in so I wouldn't be late, so they wouldn't take back the offer. But I was still contemplating on whether or not I would accept the other one. So I had made a decision in my mind to go with the other one, although I had already accepted the other offer. And so I spoke to my mentor and I was like, hey, look, I'm kind of leaning toward this way, and I really like what they're offering, but I've already sent them my letter because they kind of rushed me, right? They kind of told me, hey, you need to let us know. And he was like, I don't think that's a good idea because the industry is so small, you know, your word is everything. So if you decide to renege on something that you've already signed a dotted line on and accept it, that could hurt you in the long run. And I was like, wow, I never thought about that. Not to that level or that degree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I ended up following his advice, and I think it panned out pretty well for me. You know, I've been at that company for a while now. So
Wow. That's insane. Like, yeah, so I was definitely one of the people that did not get any type of job offers. And what's crazy is I love how, I mean, I don't know if that was just innate in your nature to say like, oh, journalism, that's a passion of mine, but you know, finance, that's something more that has more security and stability. I know going into my college career, my mother was incarcerated at the time. Me and my dad didn't have a relationship. He was absent. And so I just had my grandparents to lean on, and they never went to college before. I just knew I was going to college. I'm like, I'm not gonna have to get no loans. I don't want to do that. And I was so mad when I had to get loans. But I chose my path based on my passion. So I originally was like, I was doing broadcast journalism, and I had said, okay, I don't really want to go to school for that. I'm like, I don't want to be a news reporter. That's not really that's what I associate. I didn't understand like the different fields under journalism. I was just like, that's not what I wanted to do. And then I was naturally drawn to business, and I felt that that was just boring. And they had a fashion and business dual program, and I was like, okay, that's me. Let me do that. And graduated. And yeah, I mean, Texas is not a fashion market. Dallas is kinda. But I knew I had to go to New York or LA, and I applied, didn't get any offers, and decided to enroll back into school and went to fashion design school. So I knew the business side. So it's like, okay. And after a year, I was like, I appreciate the art of design, but I don't want to be sitting behind a sewing machine. So then once I got an internship to work with, to be a assistant fashion buyer in New York, it was unpaid. I just packed up and went. And yeah, after 6 weeks, I was like, don't want to be a starving artist. And I couldn't find a job out there either. So I came back home. So it's been that figuring out and just listening to my heart and knowing what's not for me. Because I know some people, you know, some people have those stories like, and I mean, I did sleep on couches and go to LA, and I've explored and done several different things. But if it felt good, if I was sleeping in my car, then I was good. But if it didn't feel right, I'm like, I'm gonna go home. So definitely had different moments of just pivoting and just trying to figure things out. And for what I'm doing today, yeah, only God had this in mind because I had no idea. Now, I definitely want to get into the creative side of you. I think that's like what I love and appreciate about you the most. Will and I connected, it was just a year ago. Why do I feel like it's been so much longer?
It's just been a year?
It's just been a year. We connected, I remember like last March when at what's the name of the spot?
No.
Yes, at Elsie's
Yep.
Yeah, and so we connected then, but then I guess we just followed each other on Instagram and just kind of stayed plugged in. But yeah, when did you started really seeing this creative eye in regards of like sharing that gift with other people as a business?
Man, so I think the transition was like from journalism, me liking to write, and then like the people that I always associated myself with. So I always seemed to be in the know of like culture and like what was going on. I'm from New Orleans originally, and I moved to Houston after the hurricane, right? But I've always had this kind of broad curiosity for the world. So I always dibbled and dabbled in this. I was like a Tumblr guy, right? Like I would learn a little bit about this. I watch documentaries. So I was into a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also got a chance to travel very early on. Blessed, I'm thankful. I remember I did a trip, a college tour. I went from New Orleans all the way up to the East Coast, through New York to the West Coast, back down. So I got a chance to see different cultures and like, whoa, they do that over there like that? Like, wow. And so I was just fascinated with the idea of, hey, where you are right now is not how everything is everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I was also into music, and I was completely fascinated by the fact that artists here in America were bigger outside of the country. That was crazy to me.
Wow.
So I had an affinity for understanding culture outside of my own box, my own cubbyhole. So in doing so, I usually had like-minded friends. So growing up in high school, it was a few of my friends. My brother's the same way. Manny, I had a friend named Manny, Quinn, a bunch of other guys, Kenny, a bunch of other guys that we were cool with, and we would just talk about music to fashion to culture to a bunch of different things, and we started to kind of scope out the creative scene. Mm. So Manny, you know Manny,
yeah,
Manny and a few friends, we got together, and Manny had this unique idea of starting an agency, a creative agency. Now we had been following like this agency, a super cool agency. We thought that was just the coolest, called the Madberry Club. And the Madberry Club were out of New York. And they just did whatever they wanted to do. And they worked with like these big brands, and they worked with Nike, and they worked with Adidas, and they did campaigns for the NBA, but they did whatever they wanted to do. And this is on the East Coast. And so it was a transition. It was a barrier being here down south, mm-hmm. and getting this old industry down south is pretty old in terms of understanding the possibilities of things.
Yeah.
To understand that. And on the East Coast side of things, it was completely different. So anyway, Manny was like the design guy. I was more like the copywriter guy and like the strategy guy. We had other guys that did video and photography, and we decided, hey, let's put this thing together. Mm. So it originally started out as us just working on projects that we enjoyed doing, right? So like I have an appreciation for Houston, right? I do. I'm not from here, but
yes,
I like what Houston. I like what Houston has done for me personally. So and those guys, they are completely Houston stands. They love Houston. You can't say nothing bad about Houston.
You cannot.
No. And you probably the same way, clearly. But but so we decided to do like something where we would kind of promote Houston. And like, so we started like these little mini projects, and then we started having events, and then we started to kind of promote the brand and advertise things and do projects and collaborate, and it kind of took off from there very organically.
Wow.
Right? And we got like a creative house, and we had a studio downstairs, and you know, it was a open season, anybody could come by, and we kind of had this collaboration type of deal, and it was just unheard of in Houston.
Most definitely unheard of, because the thing is, with me being a creative, I tend to stay as connected to creatives as possible, but it was very spread out. There was necessarily no essential hub for creatives. Now, I consider Houston a very multicultural city. I think we have a lot of different niche groups, but, you know, in regards of the Black culture, it's kind of like, you know where it's at. But in regards to creatively, LA, that's a different story. New York, that's a different story. I could even say New Orleans is a different story because New Orleans is a creative city too. But I mean, I'm not from there, so I may not know everything. But I can say for sure, Houston. When you think Houston, you don't instantly think, "Ooh, they got a dope creative scene." I think we are progressing. I think the city is understanding the impact creatives can have on the economy, honestly. And that I definitely feel like now that I always say Houston's the best city to live in because you can like have a good, like stable life, but then you can also do a little extra, you know. I almost moved to LA. Like I was always back and forth, but I almost was like, I'm about to just give me a crib out in LA because that's where action at, that's what this, that's what that. But I thought about it and I was like, I really don't want to live in a box. That was number one. I'm like, I work too hard to come home to live in a box. And then number two was, I just really, I mean, as I get older, I just value my family so much more. And in my free time, I didn't want to be with Hollywood people. I'd rather be with my genuine, real friends and family. And so just to kind of like pivot the conversation, when it comes to just the family unit, and when we talk about personal finance, like what are some of the things people should be focused on right now, considering this pandemic? And I just feel like this opportunity to bring us closer, but if we're going to come closer as a unit, you know, what are some intentional things we can do like as a household to just make sure that we really be able to take this and, you know, progress forward and not go backwards, you know?
No, that's a hell of a question. I always live by a motto that I've used for a long time, and I always have this understanding that cash is king, right? That's important. Credit is leverage, right? That's also extremely important. And then debt can be devastating. Those those are my mantras. And specifically within the Black community, I think we don't talk about personal finance enough, right? I've done a lot of reading, and through my experience, like I said, I've been working in finance for almost a decade now, and working with, you know, $1 million budgets and seeing what is put into these budgets and what type of work is put into it, and understanding something called contingency. Contingency is if something goes left, if something goes completely left, do you have enough money to make sure that this budget still comes in okay? Mm-hmm. And essentially what contingency is emergency money, right? And so nobody like to talk about it for some odd reason, but truly, you know, when it takes entrepreneurship, when it takes starting your own business, starting your own thing, you can't do that with no capital. Mm-hmm. So, which means that you have to value those things the way they're supposed to be valued. And so for me personally, you hear these amazing stories about people who, you know, they have their 9-to-5 jobs and they're completely miserable. And they get up one day and they say, you know what? I'm not doing this no more. I'm going to follow my dreams. I'm going to follow my passion. We heard the Steve Harvey stories of him sleeping in his car in LA, had $35 to his name, right? But truthfully, I'm going to be honest about that. Steve Harvey and a lot of these stories that we hear about, they are probably in the 2-3%. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
You gotta, and we don't talk about it enough. You have a lot of starving artists who decided to make those moves and those transitions. And guess what? They never made it. And they had to come home or you know, even worse. And God forbid that happens. So one thing, especially within the Black community, I think it's important for us to plan and try to automate as much as possible, right? At least with a plan, you can kind of foresee the future financially. But when you don't plan, then you get into a pandemic like this, and you're praying for a stimulus check. You know what I mean? You praying for a bailout. But if you position yourself earlier on and you didn't value what other people thought about, you know, what you do over here, and we have I think generationally, our people have an issue with kind of the way we grow up and the way that we're brought up. We don't really value finances like that, and we don't talk about it enough, right? Even in my household, and no knock on she did all that she could do, and I'm completely blessed that she was my mom. But I remember asking my mom and my family members, how much this costs, and oh, can I get that? And it's like, do you have that kind of money? Not having a conversation about,
Yeah.
what mom, how much is your mortgage? How much is insurance? How much do you pay in taxes a year?
Yeah.
And these are conversations that our people don't have enough. And so I just think that overall, when things go awry and stuff like this happen, a pandemic happens, you kind of, you take off the blindfold and you can really see what's really going on.
Right.
And so I think it's important for you to kind of position yourself and plan ahead of time to make sure that you are stable enough to survive hurricanes and thunderstorms. You know what I mean? So that's my biggest thing.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's a mentality thing. Like, we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people and, what they have, and think about long term, what is your plan, right? What is Precious' plan? What is Will's plan? What do you want to do? How do you want to accomplish those goals? And, stay steadfast in it. Because if you don't, and things go off kilter, then, you kind of stuck and you kind of hurt. So you want to avoid that.
Yeah, I definitely could say my financial advice came from experience, Both of my parents were entrepreneurs, but I never really had a conversation about money. My grandparents, they made sure, I watching them tithe, like they always tithe, and they were on a set income, but they always had money. And I was so confused because I'm like, y'all get the same check every month, but for whatever reason, I'm still coming back to y'all asking y'all for money and y'all got it. It was insane to me. So even through my financial, I don't even know what to call it, roller coaster of just being able to sustain, I made sure whenever I did receive money that I did pay my tithes. And I can give a lot of, I believe a lot of where I am now is due to that obedience, because you do have the times where it's like, okay, I have more month than money. Like, how am I supposed to be able to plan for the future when I can barely sustain with what I have right now? And so there's that faith factor again of like, I have to see this through and be sure that my actions, that I'm at least, if I can't plan the money, I need to at least plan my actions and my behavior so that I can create the opportunity for me to start doing that. And I remember, like, there was a time where I think I made like $5,000 for the entire year. And I don't know how I ate, I can't tell you. It was nobody but God, literally, because that was me just trying to figure things out. And I never stopped trying. And so I think a lot of people, when they hear the financial advice, is like, I'm not in that space where I could do that. So let me just keep doing what I'm doing. But I feel like the goal is to keep trying to figure out to get on that path. And I'm definitely thankful right now to be able to have some sustainable income, because honestly, just during this whole time, I've been thinking about the parents that depend on the public schools, the education system for, food for their kids to eat. And those that don't have internet and computers, that's trying to figure out this online school thing. So it's just so many different factors, but it's sadly enough, it all boils down to money. I mean, the reason that Texas is back open right now is because they're like, hey, we care about y'all health, but we really got to get this economy back up, because Texas is majority middle-class workers and we need y'all to be at work. And granted, I know there were a lot of people saying they were ready to go to work, but I'm just so glad I'm not the mayor or the governor or the president, because I couldn't do that job. I couldn't come home with the stress of having all these lives. And granted, I know it's a lot of people that come together to make these decisions, but it's just a lot of things to factor in. And money is such a sensitive topic. And it's because we don't talk about it. And we have to, like, kind of the only way we can break through the sensitivity is making it, having these types of conversations. Have you started talking about money with your daughter?
Oh, dang, that's a hell of a transition. I have. And look, so it's funny you mentioned that because you talked about your journey and how, you had a low period, but you still made it out.
Yeah.
I think it's completely psychological,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I know people, I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and there's a lot of people in here who, they make purchases and they crossing their fingers and they praying that the card don't decline. Now, why you don't know how much you have in your account? Why you don't know that? That's a problem.
Yeah.
And I read a New York Times report earlier this year, and it said about 50% of people know what their credit card debt is, right?
Wow.
But only 50%. But 86% of credit card companies reported that 86% of people have credit card debt. So most people don't even know how much money they owe because it's kind of like one of those things where if I don't know, ignorance is bliss, basically.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
But it ain't, because that credit score is, and it's hitting you, and when you can't get approved for something and you need a cosigner every time you're trying to get something, then that's a problem. So, but with my daughter, I've been very, very open and transparent and trying to show her every time we do something, right? Like, so we go to the store and she wants something, I ask her how much it costs. And so I try to break it down to her. I think in Texas, the minimum wage is like $7.25 or something like that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Right. So, I tell her, okay, if you want something at Target, you want to toy something at Target and it costs you $12 and you work 1 hour, do you have enough money to afford to buy that? And do you actually need that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can psych yourself. Like Precious could say, I had a hell of a week this week. I'm about to go buy a Chanel bag. I had a great week.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hell of a week. And I feel like now,
I treat myself with food, but
all right, hey, perfect. If you plan and you're able to buy that, and my rule of thumb is 3 times. If you can buy it 3 times, then that's my rule.
3 times? Okay. I'm writing my notes down. Dang it.
Kids are thankful for it. If you are not able to truly afford something, it's no knock at you. You should have some savings goals in place too for like your long-term stuff. If you want a vacation at the end of the year, you should set aside this and that. So when your girlfriend say, hey, for my birthday, I'm trying to go here in 3 weeks. Are you down to go? Well, baby, you just telling me. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can go.
Is this a real life scenario or this is just a made up one? Oh, it's made up. Okay.
I don't know if that hit you or not, but I'm just making it up on the fly. But yeah, I think it's important to have those conversations with, if you think about your own upbringing, were your parents honest with you about that? Were they telling you about? Most of us know. I didn't.
No one told me. I just knew that, honestly, I was blessed enough that when I needed something, I got it. And I was always a good kid too. So I think that played a role. So for me, it was more so of like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So can I get this? And of course, with me being in entrepreneurship and my people owning businesses, I understood, just having overhead and margins. And so I understood business. But when you talk about taking care of yourself as an individual, this adulting game, it's on a whole nother level. Because when I think about what it actually costs for me to just live, plus be able to have some type of social life, it's like, wait, y'all set us up for failure from the beginning because just in regards to just maintaining. And I personally have done some of my calculations. I need to find it because I did it a couple of years back. But I did the average cost. I think I just did averages, but I was like 2-parent household. I don't know if I said 2 or 3 kids. Let's say you got car notes, you want to do family vacations, you want to save up for college, you want to have investments, all these different things. I want to say it was close to like $300,000 for that household income for you to like live a very comfortable life in regards of having savings, vacationing, being able to provide for your kids, have the little luxuries. Because I think even having like, you know, a house with a pool, that's a luxury. So just this life that they talk about, the American dream, that household has to be 6 figures plus. When I think the average person right now, I think it's what, 40K or 45K is like the average salary. So we got to get to work. we have no choice now.
Right. And don't overwhelm yourself, you know, thinking about this. If you piecemeal it and also think about what you want, you know, within the next 3 or 5 years. I've had experience. I have friends and family members come to me and ask me to help them audit their finances. And basically it'll just be me not all digging into all your information and stuff, but understanding like your cost of living, things that you have to pay for, you know, your expenses on a monthly basis, and then figuring out where you can cut costs, right? There's like a lot of us have credit cards and a lot of other things, and they are like unnecessary fees that we pay for that we don't even know about, right? You got interest rates and you have annual fees that you pay for. And there's a lot of things that we don't dig into because we don't think we can, but we have the right to. So if you piecemeal different expenses and then control your income, you know, making sure that, okay, this is what you make and these are your expenses, and anything outside of that, maybe you couple that with, you know, a side hustle or
right,
a little bit more hours on the side. You can't necessarily control your fixed expenses, but you can control your income.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, but I think one thing that we have to do is stop being quiet about it. You know, a lot of people like to flaunt and show different things, but nobody want to have the real discussions. And so, you know, we get in
man,
and we
I
about
just
to
hit
be
29,
raising.
man. I'm knocking 30. I'm over here like that.
I'm right there.
Lord. But I can say this. So although I've had my financial roller coaster, I have, was it last year or this year? I'm gonna just say this year. I've gotten very more disciplined in my financial planning is how I'm gonna say it. So every Saturday I have money dates with myself. I call them money dates. You know, I got to make it attractive for me so I can actually do it. Because I definitely was the ignorance is bliss. I was like, I don't want to look at it. I already know it's messed up. Just trying to control my emotional state right now. I don't really want to stress myself out. But, you know, I'm like, hey, guess what? When you get done having your little emotional thing, it's still going to be right there. So get it together. Get it together, P. So I have to have that self-talk. So yeah, now with my money dates, I just lay it all out. I mean, a lot of the expenses, they are fixed expenses. Some of them, you know, it's just like, why I got all these subscriptions? So then you get to the point where it's like, okay, we got family sharing. Okay, I'm gonna pay for the Apple Music. You pay for the Netflix. And then you take care of the Hulu. And you know, that we started doing this whole sharing community thing. So, you know, I'm like, cool, I could save an extra $50. Bam. Next thing, and I could definitely say just changing my attitude with my finances, that allowed me to have a better positive relationship with money. Because I think when we have a poverty mindset, there's no way, but who wants to get excited about bills? Now I'm like, great, I can pay for them. Awesome. I'm not gonna lie and say I did take advantage of this pandemic and saying, pay before, I didn't say before I pay, but I was like, hi, I just wanted to know if you guys have any programs for the COVID-19 relief. They're like, oh yeah, actually we're providing a grace period. Awesome. So I definitely called all of everyone I pay bills for. I'm like, okay, what programs they got so I can, you know, maneuver and strategize. But I'm like, wow, I've really made progress if I'm being proactive Because most of the time, it's like a reactive thing of like, what just happened? So, I definitely can say I'm being more intentional, and being intentional about my money just makes me feel good as an adult, as a business person, and having these conversations. I do feel like it's important, and holding each other accountable. And so even with PAG Academy that I'm going to be launching this summer, my sole focus is to help people build their human capital, which is their knowledge and skills, their social capital, which is their relationships, and their financial capital. So, I'm probably going to have to reel you in too, but I'm about to get in their face about it. Hey, y'all, it's real. We can't avoid it any longer. So look, we may have to come up with a creative campaign or something.
Let's do it.
Because I really want to build awareness for financial literacy, because money is not everything, but it can solve a lot of problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we need to stop being quiet about that.
Man.
And I already have an idea, because even so my daughter, she's obviously not at school right now. So they got a lot of online work, and it's honestly a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. They have them doing a lot of stuff. So I spent time with her going through different things. And it's funny, one of the assignments she had was about entrepreneurship, which is very ironic.
Wow, what grade is she?
Third grade.
Third grade. I was going to say fourth, but third grade. Okay.
And so I'm looking at science, math, social studies, English, reading, all these different subjects, but there's a lost curriculum, and the lost curriculum is money. There's a lost curriculum. So I think I'm gonna take it upon myself to kind of put something together for, and this isn't just for kids. This is for adults who never got that type of information, right? Yeah. And so I think we definitely could do something with that. But psychologically, it's important that we understand that you can't avoid it. It's not going nowhere. It's right there. And like you said, once you change your attitude about it, now you feel like you can attack it. Yeah. And that's what it's about. You know what I mean?
When it comes to money, the faith and finesse, that's where it really come in. What I tell you, it was one time where I was like, okay, money day time. It was like I want to say it was like midnight or something. I was just up like trying to strategize. And I went into it knowing that, okay, I know I'm short this month, but I'm about to sit here and figure out how we about to get past this. And I forgot that I had a check in the mail. I had took a break, or I went downstairs to go check my mail, had a check in the mail for probably about 80% of what I needed. And I was like, okay, God, let me go back in prayer again so we can figure this out. But I can definitely say, with you pivoting just each time and growing and just becoming a man and all of how has your faith played a role in this finessing? Because I think, we never going to know it all, and we just going to continue to learn what we can, apply what we can. But yeah, how has your faith played a role?
Man, I don't even think we have enough time to talk about that.
Oh my God.
So many testimonies that I could only attribute to God. You know what I mean? I try my best to remain faithful and pray and have my own relationship with God. I think everybody should have their own relationship with whoever they deem as their higher power. Mm-hmm. I think spirituality is very important. And for us as a people, I think it's embedded in our souls. Yeah. So if you're missing alignment with your spirituality, then you're missing a piece of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I've always thought it was important to do that. And just, through everything, you get trials and tribulations, you get storms, and when you get through it, I think it's important to have a reflective period where you understand that, hey, yesterday it was ugly. It was bad. And you didn't get through that on your own at all. Mm-hmm. That was nobody but God. And so, my prayer always is to thank God for his favor, mercy, and grace. And so I think through my journey of where I am today, I'm just in complete gratitude for where he has placed me. And I want to say something for just men in general. We can't ignore the elephant in the room, especially with the environment, the atmosphere that's going on right now. You know, the man who was killed, you know, at the hands of police, murdering us again. You know what I
Again.
mean? Again, you know, I'm people who know me know I'm very opinionated, and I feel very strongly about it because, you know, essentially they have eradicated another Black man from society who could have been something serious to somebody else. You know what I mean? I didn't have, my father wasn't in the picture. We have a great relationship now, but growing up, I didn't have that. But I had a lot of men who were father figures to me. And still to this day, you know, I feel like I'm in debt to them. And had those men not been existing, you know, I don't know where I would be today. And so who knows these boys and these men who lost their life, what kind of direct impact they could have had on somebody else. And that's completely taken. And so I think for Black men, period, you know, when we leave the house, we have to worry about so many different things. And we talking about finance, and I think it's important to talk about it because a big thing with men, especially Black men, is we're taught to be the provider.
Yeah.
You know, we're taught to do this and that. And so if you convicted wrongly by the very same powers that be that's supposed to protect you, and now you can't find a job, and it's a complete, you know, it keep on going over and over and over again. And how can you be a provider? How can you do something for your family legally? You know, and you get put in this dilemma, and it's, you know, and on top of that, you know, I know a lot of women have issues with the longevity of their relationships and commitment, but a lot of commitment issues for men stem from financial insecurity. I mean, like, you know, if more of men, Black men specifically, felt more stable in their financial altitude, then they would probably feel more inclined to commit. Yeah. But, you know, it's hard when you battling outside forces, and on top of that, you know, you're trying to provide for your family, and there's also a certain level of expectation that people hold you accountable for. So, and this isn't, you know, I'm not on trying to make this seem like, oh God, you know, we going through so much, but it's the reality. And I think it's important for us to understand that, you know? So yeah, when it comes to Black men, I think that it's important for us to really show love, and, like, you know, it's sad, and I don't want to become numb to it, which is why I try to speak on it as much as I can. I don't want to ever become numb to this, you know. But the truth of the matter is, any of those men, any of those boys who died could have easily been me. Could have been my nephew. Could have been my brother. Could have been my father. Could have been my uncle. You know what I mean? So I make it very real for myself. And I think it's important for us to keep that into consideration and try to help as a collective unit rather than continue to knock us down and have these expectations that are not realistic.
Yeah. When I tell you that I'm so intentional when it comes to my interactions with Black men. Like, one, just, it's hard to communicate sometimes, right? And I know some people get fed up, maybe even from a dating space or just relationships in general. And so I just have this special place in my heart for Black men. And whenever a Black man decides to be even a little bit vulnerable, whether that's like, I remember I had a conversation, I was at some event, and this guy saying, I don't know if he was trying to talk to me or what, but I was talking to him, and he was saying that he may need some help with branding, gave him my card and asked him what his aspirations were. And he was sharing with me what he wanted. And I was like, you know, he ended up texting me like, hey, you know, can we meet up for drinks? And I was like, you know what? I'm not sure what, you know, his motives are, but let me at least hear him out to be some type of light to be able to help him take some steps forward. And so whenever I'm having, I know that everything comes back to money. Everything's come back to finances. So even with PAG Academy, I have a separate strategy specifically for Black men that I have with my business coach and my ad team of like, hey, I need to have a special message for them because they need it most. Us with Black women, you know, Black girl magic, we just naturally are just always seeking information and wanting to be better. But, you know, as men, they're not as expressive with that. And so for me, I'm like, let me make a message just like plain and clear that they can understand, where I'm at least being able to touch them in some way where they want to be more intentional about it. Because I do believe, you're absolutely right, I do believe if men were more financially secure, they would be more inclined to commit. And, you know, the woman's the prize, though, at the end of the day. So technically, but, you know, that's a whole other story. It's a whole other story. We don't have to get into that today.
Right. Nah, I mean, you're 100% right. My mantra is I on social media platforms, I go by catching my stride. And that's literally because I feel like that's what I'm trying to do and trying to accomplish every day. I'm trying to catch my stride. And you know, it's a commitment. And the day that I decide to not do that is the day that I feel like everything will fall. So I have to maintain that position of trying to catch my stride. And so, and that's another thing, you know, when it comes to like the Black family dynamic and just, you know, the family dynamic period, it's important for both parties to understand each other enough to have some type of appreciation for each other to help them through, you know, whatever. I think that's very important.
I agree. Whew. So I have some rapid fire questions for you to wrap up this conversation. So they're kind of like this or that. So you ready? They're like this or that format.
Okay.
Okay. So oatmeal or smoothie?
Ooh, smoothie.
Audio book or real book?
Real book.
Blazer or bomber?
Blazer.
Football or basketball?
Basketball.
When you do your daughter's hair, you rather do a bun or a ponytail?
A ponytail. She's so tired of that ponytail.
Mardi Gras or Coachella?
Mardi Gras.
So you rather do an outdoor shoot or an indoor shoot?
Indoor.
What's the last thing you ordered on Amazon?
Oh, the last thing I ordered on Amazon. Oh, I'm not doing good with this rapid fire. The only thing I could think of is I bought like this desk to go near my bed. My girlfriend hates it, but it's a big desk. And so when I'm in the bed and I'm being lazy, I just roll out of bed and use the desk I need to. That's the last thing I'm sure that's not the last thing, but that's all I could think of right now.
And what's your definition of love?
Wow. I think love is the perpetual ability to try to understand, evaluate, and reciprocate that same energy to another person.
Whoa, that was probably the most descriptive and on point definition that I've heard. Wow, that's powerful. Within it, you kind of gave advice on how to love, in a sense.
Okay.
Too. So I can take that. You're absolutely right. So, well, I want to thank you for being part of this conversation. Say that again.
Everybody has their own definition. That's
of course. No, I have several from this series. I'm like, okay, I'm just taking notes on just how I like to have conversations about love. I feel like we don't talk about that enough. And so I like to create a space where we can just openly express that, you know, and just being conscious of that. Because I do feel like just loving one another, we can just go so much further. And it's just sad that us as Black people, we're having to fight for our humanity in this country. And I just, you know, I had my moment yesterday when I watched the video and heard the news about Mr. George Lloyd, I want to say is his last name. Hope I quoted that correctly. And to know that he was from Houston. And there were several other people that I know that went to school with him, connected with him, seen him as a cousin or uncle. And the state of America is just, it blows my mind that we're in year 2020 and that, you know, yeah. So I'm not a Black man. I am a Black woman, but I am not a Black man. And I just know that it's a lot of pressure on you all's shoulders. And so I'm going to continue to do my best to support you guys, whether that's with a smile, a like, a comment, a share. Just, I know a lot of men loves language is words of affirmation. So I'm going to keep affirming greatness into you all and just doing whatever I can. So I really appreciate you. And I hope that all the women and people in your life continue to love on you. And you are, honestly, I still feel like you haven't even reached your prime yet. So I know that there's a really, really bright future ahead for you, ahead for us. And we're going to continue to just be leaders and continue to cultivate these conversations because they're necessary. So I want to thank you. And if there's any encouraging words you want to give to everyone just in this time, like I declare a victorious year moving forward. And so if you have any words of advice, that would be great.
Sure. PAG Academy, definitely something that everybody should look into. I will definitely be there. I'll be that person looking into it. If I was to give any advice, I would tell everybody to start where you are with what you have. Don't worry about, trying to hit a home run every time. Sometimes you have to go through the pains of building something to understand the value once it's built. And I would say to love each other. Always love each other. I have this thing I called between a couple of my line brothers, we call it ALT. And so we joke around and we mess around all the time. But on Tuesdays, it's all love. It's all love Tuesdays, ALT. Aww. So I encourage everybody to have that same type of mindset. It's okay to, kick, joke, have fun. But I think at the end of it, it should always be all love.
All love. I appreciate you. That's all love. Y'all all love, okay?
Appreciate it.
All right, well, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll definitely be in touch for sure.
Thank you, P. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye.